Hey guys, Trigger Up John coming at you with another Diablo Immortal video. Now, today's video is going to be all about the legendary items that I'm going to be looking out for my Demon Hunter build. Now, if you saw yesterday's video, then you kind of know I just did a breakdown on the Demon Hunter on leveling it from 1 through 60 on what my take is. I know it's going to be different than a lot of others. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and cover the gear as well that I'm going to be looking for while I'm leveling. And I know I'm not going to get a whole lot of it while I'm leveling. I fully understand that. It's going to be more once I hit level 60. And a lot of this gear is going to complement the kind of build that I'm going to be really running in the end game anyways. But I want to go ahead and put it out there so that way if you guys see this gear as you're moving forward, it'll stick out in the back of your head. You're like, hey, maybe I should keep this and hold on to it and equip it because I may want it later on for some sort of a synergistic build. All right, so once again, we're back with the handy dandy Excel spreadsheet. Now this will be going away. Well, actually it won't be going away, so to speak. It will be integrated into our website, which is going to be really cool. You can just go ahead and do a quick teaser. You know, we got something like this going on here. It's going to be a great thing for Aftershock United. I'm looking forward to it. But anyways, that'll be live next week sometime. So definitely go join the Aftershock United community. It's going to be something really worth your time. We're going to be growing pretty fast, to be honest with you. And we're backed by a big company, so it helps us with producing good quality content, right? All right, so let's go ahead and get into the video. And that's going to be essentially what you need to know and what gear you need to really be looking for when moving forward in Diablo Immortal. Now, not all gear is going to be labeled the same. We did kind of talk about the abilities that I'm going to be taking on my leveling guide. If you didn't see that, definitely go check out the video before this one. It'll kind of go through the full breakdown on my 100% thought process of what gear I want to use. Essentially, what I came up with is I'm going to use Multi-Shot Vengeance, Rain, and Sentry are going to be my primary and secondary abilities that I'm going to run with. So this means I'm going to be looking for gear that's going to synergize with that, right? Like you don't want to use gear that doesn't really synergize well with that. We got to make sure that we get it all going together. It all jives, because at the end of the day, it's all about that synergy with your build. Because if it doesn't synergize, it doesn't work. All right. So first things first, if you see the gear piece called Vision of the Lost. Now let's go ahead and let's look at Vision of the Lost. It's going to be this one right here. Vision of the Lost is going to be during Vengeance. Each defeated enemy increases the remaining duration of Vengeance by 0.2 seconds up to a maximum increase of 2.4 seconds. What this means is as you get a kill, it keeps increasing. That puts Vengeance up another 2.4 seconds. Vengeance itself has a cooldown of... Let me grab that cooldown real quick for you guys. Vengeance has a cooldown of 20 seconds. So it's going to extend this by 2.4 seconds. That's another over 10%. And the other thing is it's going to recruit, if it gets it awakened, it's going to decrease it by another 10%. So not only is it increasing it by over 10%, we're going to decrease by another 10%. So really, when this is awakened, it's a 20% difference. So that does become impactful with your rotation on doing damage. So keep that in mind. That's why we want to look for gear pieces like this. Next thing is going to be Cowl of Absolute Punishment. Now, the Cowl of Absolute Punishment is going to be a multi-shot damage increase by 10% and a cooldown decrease by 10%. Multi-shot is going to be one of the most impactful skills in the game. For a Demon Hunter, you're going to constantly be spamming your primary button, and then you're going to be really hitting super hard with multi-shot, just trying to integrate that damage. The multi-shot's a 9-second cooldown anyways, so you get 9 seconds and reduce it by 10%. It adds up, guys. It adds up a lot, especially in these battles, because during AARPG battles, the biggest thing that you run into is timing your skills and abilities with your cooldowns while fighting enemies. So this helps you with that. All right, the other one we're going to talk about is Cowl of Focused Hatred. And honestly, this is going to be the one I'm going to be looking for the most. That's going to be this one at the top left here. Multi-shot fires 4 additional arrows, multi-shot damage increased by 10%. I'm already not going to be taking a movement skill. I'm going full DPS with a little bit of a leeway with the Sentry. However, multi-shot fires 4 additional arrows is going to be a lot more damage on top of once it's awakened, doing another 10% damage. that's massive. So Callow Focused Hatred is going to be the one I'm actually looking for the most. That really brings multi-shot from here up to here, in my personal opinion. All right, moving on, the chest pieces. Now, these were a rip, not gonna lie. Demon Hunter has probably the worst chest pieces I've ever seen. These are all trash, garbage, other than one, and honestly, I mean, it's okay, and we'll talk about it as we go through the build. Heart of Vengeance is about the only chest piece worth it. Basically, Rain of Vengeance becomes empowered with Frost, damaging and chilling enemies. So you do want to be using Rain of Vengeance to make this work. And yeah, it increases and it decreases the cooldown by 10%, which I believe Rain of Vengeance has a cooldown. Once again, I should just leave this up so that way I have it for my reference here. Rain of Vengeance does a 16 second cooldown, so which isn't terrible. That's not bad at all. But another 10% down, that shortens it. Once again, synergy. You by now you get the spiel. Synergy is going to be the word I use a lot here because that's why we're looking for these gear pieces. All right. The next one that we're going to be looking for is going to be shoulders. Because at this point, there really isn't any other good options for the chest piece, unfortunately. So let's go down to shoulders. What do we got for shoulders? We have some options. Okay, on the shoulders. My opinion, this one it's gonna be totally up to you, but I want you to think about something that we just talked about. We just talked about where we're gonna take this Heart of Vengeance, right? Well, what if we take Heart of Vengeance and we take Hailstone Shoulders? That's gonna be my recommended shoulders, and that's because Rain of Vengeance becomes empowered with Frost, chilling enemies. Okay, so that's an extra damage modifier, or a different element modifier, right? Rain of Vengeance cooldown decreased by a further 10%. See what we're doing here? We're lowering that. We're increasing the chance for AoE damage. That's what we're doing, right? And then we're gonna talk about another skill that would also do it, and you'll quickly realize what we're really doing with this build. Okay, the other one that we're gonna talk about is gonna be Hailfire. So we've already talked about using the skill that really helps out with the multi-shot. Now, what if we get this cowl up here, Focused Hatred, that does 4 additional arrows, and if we take that and then get Hailfire, which multi-shot also launches 2 homing rockets, each dealing damage, and then we decrease the cooldown of that. That's pretty good in my opinion. Once again, it's all about your build specific, but I'm gonna say Hailstone Shoulders and Hailfire are gonna be the 2 most powerful shoulders in the Demon Hunter Guide build. All right, moving on, we have the legs. Once again, we don't have a whole lot of good options for the legs, unfortunately. I wish there were better options, but with what we do have, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm gonna say the only one worth talking about here and recommending you go for is gonna be this Cost Unrelenting Fury. During Vengeance, every 2 primary attacks will cause you to launch 1 additional rocket that deals damage to nearby targets. Vengeance's cooldown is decreased by 10%. This is going to synergize as well with if you bring in this Vision of the Lost. So definitely keep in mind which ones you're using. Make sure you synergize these pieces, because then you get a 20% cooldown and you get an increase of 2.4. So now you're at 30 seconds essentially of a cooldown for during Vengeance. So definitely keep that in mind. Okay. All right, moving on. Unfortunately, we're gonna go all the way to the flame, all the way to the main hand, okay? Now, luckily, where the Demon Hunter really fails at a lot of the other pieces of gear, he really excels, or she really excels at the main hand offhand. There's a lot of options here, and a few of these aren't listed that could be good options, so don't take what I say exactly for, like, take it with a grain of salt a little bit, because I'm gonna talk about these pieces of gear because they synergize with the other ones that I recommended. So just because they are good pieces of gear, I always look for a build with any game I play that really synergizes and has a good intertwining balance. So that way you can really play a lot off your strengths, right? Because even though if you have like one piece of gear, let's say it's like a god tier piece of gear, however, if it doesn't tie in correctly with your build or your synergy or your damage rotation, right? Like say it throws off your timing for your cooldowns, then it actually is going to be more harmful than helpful. So definitely keep that in mind when you're picking out your gear pieces and looking for these gear pieces moving forward. However, I don't think you can ever go wrong with Flame Spy. Almost everybody's going to be running multi-shot, and that's going to just add a burn element then to your multi-shot, which is great, and it reduces your cooldown by 10%. You can't go wrong with that. Breath of the Winter. Now, once again, we've talked a lot about the chilling enemies. Now we're adding more chill. So I don't know how this is going to work. If this is going to stack each time. I would assume it does. I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of elemental and resistance that goes and plays along with this. So by doing more chill damage, you should hopefully see a higher threshold of damage is what I would think. We'll find out more when we go live, honestly, when the game goes live, and we're going to test it. Trust me, everyone in the Aftershock United community is going to be testing everything that we possibly can, collecting as much data as we can, and throwing it on our website. Also, we have Watcher's Salvation. This is going to be the last one that I kind of recommend, and that's because myself, I am going to be using Sentry. If you are using Sentry, I would definitely recommend that you potentially take this one, and that's because Sentry maximum number active increased by 1. So we already had it to where you could apply Sentry, which is very helpful. However, Sentry did have a cooldown. You can only have 2 of them up, right? So there's a setback or an impact right there. And Sentry essentially has a cooldown of 18 seconds. Well, with 18 seconds of a cooldown, I think the Sentry lasts 30 seconds. You can only have 2 out at a time. This gives you a 3rd one out. So then now you can always have a Sentry out. There's no requirements there, right? That never overlaps, because what you're going to do is you're going to reduce that cooldown as well. So it's going to be very helpful. I think by using Watch for Salvation, you're going to add 1 more Sentry, and you're going to increase the life of the Sentry, which is helpful because I think a lot of people are going to complain that Sentry is going to pull aggro and get wiped out, or it's just not going to last long enough because it doesn't have enough HP. It's going to take AoE hits. So this, I think, is going to help with a lot of that. Now, with that being said, we're also going to talk about the Nightwarden's Eye, which correlates directly with that, and that's going to be this offhand here right above the notepad. Now, Nightwarden's Eye is Sentry damage increased by 10%, and Awakened is Sentry damage increased by 10%. So now with Nightwarden's Eye, that's another 20% damage off your Sentry, which is already going to do a lot of damage for you. So if you're playing in a group with a Sentry, carrying both of those on main and offhand are going to be super impactful for your build. I'm just throwing it out there. And actually, we'll do more build guides. I'm going to try to actually figure out a better plug-and-play system to where we can kind of like have a great layout, where I'll probably do like a body image like we did with our set list. So that way you guys can see exactly what it looks like with the gear equipped. Definitely stay tuned. We'll do something like that. I'll work on those images here pretty soon. All right. And then the last piece of gear we're going to talk about is going to be the last offhand that I recommend, and that's going to be the Hungerer. The Hungerer is going to be a crossbow shot, will now pierce through enemies and strike additional enemies behind. Crossbow shot damage increased by 10%. This is going to be your primary skill. Upgrading and doing more damage with your primary skill is never a bad thing. You never runs out. It's never on cooldown. This will now pierce through, so now you do your circle path like I was talking about with my Demon Hunter build, and you just go straight up the middle with them. It's literally a no-brainer. The Hungerer is probably going to be the best and most sought-after offhand weapon. You definitely want to be keeping an eye out for it the entire time you're grinding. All right, so that is going to do it with the notepad list. But one thing I do want to note here is a lot of this gear is very good, and most of this gear you will not get legendary copies of it while you're leveling up. We know this, we understand this. The point of this video is not so that way you can get this gear and this is gonna be part of your build, right? Chances are going from level 1 through 60, you're never gonna touch this. It's gonna be later on, working with a warband, working with a party system, however you're gonna do it, where you run with others. Then you're gonna start getting options and getting drops that maybe get you some of this gear. So keep that in mind, don't get frustrated. Make sure that you are picking builds that make sense for you, for your skills and your play style. And then, like I said, I mentioned quite a bit of options here as far as what you could actually pick for pieces of gear that's worth it. I tried not to limit it to just one piece of gear, because then there's other options, right, for different play styles. So there's different strokes for different folks, and this allows you to have more wider variety. So definitely keep that in mind moving forward, and don't get discouraged if you don't get these. Also, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I did play the beta, I did play a little bit of Demon Hunter, but I never made it that far into the game, unfortunately. And at this point, I'm using my knowledge of other games and Diablo in general and reading skills to understand and theory craft. So just because I recommend this doesn't mean that at the end of the day, it's going to be perfect. So definitely keep that in mind. And if it works out, awesome. If it doesn't, like I said in my last video, I will come back and be like, hey, this doesn't work. Don't do that. Don't listen to this guy. You know, I'll flat out admit it. I'm one of those people where I will give credit where credit's due, and I will own it if I'm wrong. So hopefully I'm not. I feel like a lot of these choices are going to be solid choices because honestly, it's fairly no-brainer in my opinion. I hope this helped you. I hope this really drove home a little bit more of what type of gear that you're going to be looking for, and the whole aspect of synergizing both your skills and your gear. Next, we're going to have is gyms, and gyms is where everything gets really crazy, and we've already added more gyms and had a change to the gym. So that's going to be wild. Definitely stay tuned. We'll do another video on that for sure. It'll probably be out right before launch. So yeah, can't wait to see you guys then. Also, have fun, be safe. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.